Are you ready to invest in yourself today? Welcome to the WealthBuilders Podcast, where investment leader Billy Epperhart teaches you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom. Scripture says in Deuteronomy 8:18, "Remember the Lord, your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." At WealthBuilders, our goal is to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom in your finances, your business, and your investments.
I want to give you tips for being better leader managers and just share some things with you to give you some insights. And so over the years, when I've looked at leadership, this is not just stuff that I get from reading or studying, which I certainly encourage you to read and study and get better and develop yourself. But this is also some things that I've learned in my own life and mistakes that I've made. And anybody who tells you they haven't made any mistakes in leadership or in business or in ministry, they're not telling the truth, because we all make mistakes. But the key is we have to learn to fall forward, and we have to learn to experience noble failures, Dr. Radke said. So the truth of it is you have to move forward in what you're doing. So one of the keys I want to say to you and share with you, and then I'll slow down here or there and comment a little more. But one of the first keys I found to being a good leader manager, I call this tips for being a better leader manager. The first one is self-awareness. And that's really learning where you personally are and being self-aware of how you may be or may not be, depending on what's going on, how you may be or may not be affecting others around you. And so self-awareness has to do with everything from how you're relating to someone to understanding even when you may get upset here or there and need to apologize, or being aware of what's going on around you. So one of the things I've learned, some of the things about being self-aware, is the first one is that you need to be a learner. This helps you be self-aware. So if you have a mindset of being a learner, I used to tell people all the time, learn to read 2 books a week. But I'll change that here for us. If you learn just to read a book a week, and for many of us, just reading a book a month. And so if you pick up books, they don't always have to be on leadership. They don't have to be on management, but they need to be books that are moving you for something that's moving you forward in your personal life. And so learn to be a learner. And I think the more you learn, the more you become aware of things out there, I think it helps you and can help you become more self-aware. And then another one is you learn to listen. And one of the things I'll say about listening is it's good to learn to listen to those on your team. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, about learning to listen. But it's important to learn to listen, not listening so now you can respond to what you heard, but listen so you can learn, so you can understand where somebody's coming from. And one of the things that you have to do with listening is you have to learn that 85% of all communication is body language. So it's not just the words somebody's saying, it's the tone they're saying it in and the body language that they're expressing while they're saying it. So learn to listen, because sometimes you can find out where somebody may be confused or somebody may not understand. You may be reading that in some other different way. So when you're leading people, God gave us 1 mouth and 2 ears. And so that means we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. And I think that's important. Now, Elizabeth, she's got kind of a plan for me. She came in one day to a meeting or 2 meetings or whatever I was having. And I like to wear a vest, right? Not a coat. And this one I ate too much at Thanksgiving and Christmas, so it's a little tighter here. But I like to wear a vest, and I lean back and I put my hands in my vest. And so she thinks that's my greatest leader posture, is my greatest leadership posture is leaning back. And she said, you like to just lean back and listen. You don't say a lot, because you learn more by listening than you do by talking. And then I would say looking, we're talking about being self-aware. Learn to observe. And this is a statement that I use quite often. I will continue to use it quite often when I'm up here. But I think for leaders and managers and leader managers, this is important, is you learn with people when you're dealing and leading people to have perspective without passing judgment. And so what we do a lot of times is we end up, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, judge not lest you be judged. And what we have a tendency to do in our minds sometimes, even as leaders, is we end up judging somebody, and the minute you judge somebody in your mind, you buttonhole them. So you put them in a slot. And in your mind, it's very difficult to get them out of that slot. But what some leaders think is, well, I'm supposed to act, like the three monkeys were, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. And of course, you shouldn't be speaking evil. But the point is, you have to be able to observe and have perspective of things going around you, or you're going to be flying blind. So the secret sauce to this piece here of self-awareness is learn how to have perspective either about a situation or about people without passing judgment on someone. And I believe that's a secret, because I used to, early in my leadership, I got offended every time somebody disagreed or every time somebody did something I didn't like. I would take offense at that, and I learned from another mentor I had that what I'm doing is I'm passing judgment in my heart. And so if you're going to lead a team, and I'll talk about culture in a little bit, but if you're going to lead a team, you have to lead a team. It can't be judgmental, right? Now, listen to me, okay? You can't be blind either. I'm not looking for somebody to be perfect, but I am looking for them not to be distracted. In other words, can I help them be better focused in what they're doing? So when I talk about self-awareness, I'm talking about being self-aware about yourself, number one. And then number two, being self-aware of what's around you and how you may or may not be affecting other people. And that goes with the next one that I want to share on the tips for being better leader managers is learn to be the thermostat instead of the thermometer. And when you're the thermostat, what you're doing is you're setting the temperature. You're not just registering the temperature. And so let me say this to you. Don't let someone else or something else cause your temperature to be raised or lowered. That should be a choice that you make. And so one of the things I think is important as a leader is, if I have time to talk about communication, I'll bring this out in another way. But one of the things about being a leader is that it's important that people at some level, you're relatable to other people. You have to learn to be relatable, and you try to find something in common if you can. And one of my early mentors on the business side of things taught me this many years ago. But he said to me, and his name was Ed, and Ed said, find something that they like to talk about and talk to them about it. And Ed had built and still today that business is thriving and his children are enjoying the benefits of that. But he said, when you talk to other people, and this is what I was taught, so you may like it, you may not, but I'm going to give it to you, and you can put it wherever you want to. He taught me, he said, people like to talk about themselves more than they like you to hear you talk about yourself. Now, that's what one of my early mentors taught me. I later found out that came out of a couple of books that had been published back in the early 1900s and mid-1900s, both of them. But the truth of the matter is when you're the thermostat instead of the thermometer, there has to be a degree of relatability with you to other people. And so as leader managers, again, I've said this is what John Maxwell said first time I heard him say it was in the 1980s, when he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to be relatable in the sense of where people are and understand. Now, when I talk about this, when I talk about being relatable, there's an element there of being likable. So there's an element where you have to be able to touch people where they are. So being likable is not being a know-it-all. Now, y'all let me know if this is too heavy. But sometimes as leaders, we think we're supposed to be know-it-alls, but you should have a degree of vulnerability about you. Even if maybe you do know it all in a certain situation, or you think you do, you still need to be vulnerable and hear where people are coming from. Now, with that said, relatable likable on being the thermostat, John Maxwell said, because many of you have heard other people say culture trumps vision. I like what John Maxwell said. He said, don't tell them what you're going to do. That's vision. He said, do what you're going to do. That's culture. One more time. Maxwell said, don't tell them what you're going to do. That's vision. He's talking about culture trumps vision. Do what you're going to do. That's culture. In other words, you lead by example. You lead by doing, not just by talking. And it works the same way if we're talking about vision, if we're talking about culture. So now I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this, hopefully you can put yourself in this place I'm about to relate or share with you, is that one of the things in leadership that I had to learn the hard way, and that is you want to be relatable, and you want to be likable in the sense that you're doing it for the right reasons, hopefully, by building rapport with people. But however, one of the things that you cannot do if you don't have, and I'll sacrifice being likable if I have to, because there's times in leadership when sacrifices have to be made. Now, it's not usually every day. It's not usually every month. And hopefully, it doesn't happen more than maybe at this level and once a quarter where you have to do something really serious. But I would rather be respected than I would be liked when there comes to difficult situations that's going to move the organization forward to where it needs to be. And sometimes you have to deal with those kind of things head on. Now, if you find that you're dealing with those kind of difficult situations every day, every week, or very often, then you probably need to look in a mirror at yourself. But there will be times that every one of us have to make decisions that people are not going to like. But at some point later, they'll respect the decision if they've got their eyes and ears open, if you made the right decision. And so one of the things as a leader that you have to be is relatable, likable, but it's important as a leader that you're also respected. And you don't get respect automatically. You have to earn respect. And you earn respect by making difficult decisions.
We hope you learned something of lasting value today from this Wealth Builders podcast. If you'd like any tools, teachings, or resources mentioned in the podcast, you'll find them online at wealthbuilders.org. Wealth Builders exists to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom in your finances, your business, and your investments. Wealth Builders is a nonprofit organization. We depend on your donations to keep this podcast running. Please consider donating to us on wealthbuilders.org.